You're listening to the Options Insider Radio Network, the home of the Options Podcast. For more quality options programs, visit theoptionsinsider.com or search for Options Insider Radio Network in your podcast provider of choice. Listeners can also access all of our programming through our mobile app available in the iTunes and Google Play stores. Select programs are also available via live stream at mixlr.com/options-insider. That's mixlr.com/options-insider. Don't forget to follow along with your favorite programs and submit your own questions for the hosts at twitter.com/options, stocktwits.com/options, facebook.com/theoptionsinsider, or via questions at theoptionsinsider.com. And now, it's time for the show that breaks down the options market from unusual activity alerts to market analysis, strategy overviews, listener questions, and much more. If it involves puts and calls, then our all-star panel will break it down. It's time to hit the Option Block with your host, Mark Longo from the Options Insider Media Group, and co-hosts Uncle Mike Tosaw from St. Charles Wealth Management, Mark the Greasy Meatball Sebastian from OptionPit.com, Andrew the Rock Lobster, Joe Benazzi from OptionPit.com, and Henry the Flowmaster Schwartz from Cboe. The Option Block is brought to you by Cboe. Cboe's suite of S&P 500 index options, SPX and mini S&P 500 XSP options, allows traders to speculate on the direction of the market, generate income, and hedge for downside protection of their portfolio of stocks. No matter what kind of trader you are, there's plenty of useful information to take the guesswork out of creating your portfolio strategy and to help you make more educated moves in the market. Visit www.cboe.com/SPX today to learn more. The views expressed herein are those of the speakers and do not necessarily reflect the views of Cboe Global Markets Incorporated or any of its subsidiaries, collectively Cboe. The information provided is for general education and information purposes only. There are important risks associated with transacting in any of the Cboe products or any of the digital assets discussed here. Before engaging in any transactions in those products or digital assets, it is important for market participants to carefully review the disclosures and disclaimers contained at www.cboe.com/US_disclaimers. These products and digital assets are complex and are suitable only for sophisticated market participants. These products involve the risk of loss, which can be substantial and, depending on the type of product, can exceed the amount of money deposited in establishing the position. Market participants should put at risk only funds they can afford to lose without affecting their lifestyle. And now, get ready to hit the Option Block.
All right, everybody. That music means we are back once again. It is Thursday. Time to roll out the bi-weekly options extravaganza, known around the globe as the Option Block. My name, of course, Mark Longo from theoptionsinsider.com, as well as from the network that's coming at you hot and heavy this week. 5 shows hitting it yesterday. Of course, you had to be on the pro side to get all 5 of those in your ear holes right away. Not quite as heavy on my voice today. I put only in air quotes, only 3 shows coming at you today. So, of course, if you want to get access to all that stuff early, by the way, today's the 31st, the last day to get your name in the hat for the July Pro Trading Crate. Options Oddities 200 coming up on Friday. Who's going to join me for a special extravaganza of unusual activity? Well, you got to tune in to find out. The optionsinsider.com/pro is the place to go to get all of those goodies as we see what kind of goodies are joining us on the old program today. First out to the quiet, the sleepy hinterlands of Chicago, where he is busy enjoying a Costco dog across the street from the Kane County Fairgrounds as we speak. None other than Uncle Mike Tosaw from St. Charles Wealth Management. Uncle Mike, welcome back to the show. How goes that delicious, delicious Costco dog, sir?
Oh, always a pleasure. And it reminds me, I gotta get my shopping list done for the week.
Now, I had this debate with your nemesis, Mr. Dan. Are you a ketchup on a hot dog guy, or are you mustard only? You mix? What do you like?
I really don't like hot dogs that much, to be honest. So I know that sounds like anti-Chicago or whatever, but I live in St. Charles, so that's okay.
You just surrendered your American card. Do you hate apple pie, too? What kind of communist are you, sir?
I hate apple pie. I hate bacon. I hate cheeseburgers. No, I don't hate cheeseburgers.
I say, if you hate bacon, then you hate life. That's all I'm going to say to you. Even vegans like bacon. There's just some things that appeal to everyone.
What about Jewish people?
I've seen many Jewish people sneak bacon on the side and not want to tell anybody. They're like, shh, don't tell anybody. And you know what? I can't blame them because it's bacon. But I digress. Maybe Henry's a secret bacon sneaker. We'll find out as we are joined once again. It's the Thursday show by the Flowmaster himself, Mr. Henry Schwartz from Cboe. Mr. Flowmaster, how goes your Thursday, sir? And then B, have you ever snuck a piece of bacon or two? Maybe when no one was looking.
Things are good in New York City. It's the heat wave has kind of broken a little bit. I like a good couple pieces of bacon, especially like the really thick bacon you get at a steakhouse every once in a while. So that's my favorite. But things are good. Markets are at all-time highs. Balls, I don't know, VIX was under 15 a little while ago. So kind of an interesting feeling. It's actually just kind of boring.
What's not boring is your head talking to me constantly right behind your face. That's not distracting at all. I love it. As we keep on rolling right on into the trading block.
It's time to break down the latest topics, trades, and trends in the world of options. It's time for the trading block.
All right, everybody, welcome to the trading block, the portion of the show where we break down, surprise, surprise, what the heck is trading? What is lighting up our tapes out there? And it's been a day that's mostly been to the green. We had a few moments where the markets were mixed. The Dow's having a hard time kind of fighting its way out of the gate. It's been red a few times out there today. Now as we're kicking off the show, it is green to unched up about 0.05%. So that's pretty close to flat out there. The S&P was looking even more optimistic earlier this morning, north of 6,400. It's up about 0.5% right now on the backs of just bangers coming out of bangers coming out of Microsoft. The two M names of the Mag 7, of course, Meta and Microsoft, both kind of crushing it. We were joking about some seemingly wild out-of-the-money paper on both those names yesterday on the Hot Options Report. And before the show was even done, they were through the strikes on both of them. That's how wild the moves were in the after hours. Check out the Hot Options Report if you haven't done so yet, listeners. If you like this show, you're going to love that one in a bite-sized little format out there for you at the end of every day. The S&P up about 0.5% right now. NASDAQ over 0.75%, getting a nice lift out there. And that's when you thought Microsoft and these other names couldn't squeeze any more money out of those two magical letters known as AI. Here we go. We also got, I guess, blinking on the trade war today. We said we weren't going to punt. Oh, yeah, we're punting, at least with Mexico getting 90 more days out there. And we'll see who else gets the reprieve out there. So a lot of things going on this Thursday, post-Fed day, of course, as well. So a lot popping off this week. Let's go around the horn the opposite of the way we started. Let's go out to the Flowmaster first. Mr. Flowmaster, an interesting week, a Fed week. What is catching your eye out there today, sir?
Yeah, it's been a week with a little bit of everything, right? A lot of earnings. We're right in the thick of earnings, and there's plenty of excitement there. We had the Fed. We had a lot of chatter about how the Fed decision to hold rates steady was not unanimous this time around. And then we have the trade war, the tariff situation, which, most of the incoming headlines, are kind of on the positive end of things. So, and volatility is low. Realized volatility has been low. Markets at all-time highs yet again. It's kind of, we've been talking about this for a couple of months where, there's definitely still some concern out there, but I'll tell you, it's the FOMO that seems to be really motivating a lot of the activity we're seeing. We're seeing lots of double-digit movers. The meme stock kind of wave is certainly pretty active this month. So, we're coming into month end. So, we might see a little action towards the end of the day, but overall, I guess there really hasn't been, there hasn't been anything really shaking up the markets. It's just been lots of little stories, and in many cases, they're canceling each other out, which means low volatility at the index level and some fireworks at the single stock level.
Yeah, it's always fun. You mentioned the dissent on the Fed. It's always fun when the Fed starts to get political. those two dissenters, they might as well have done a poll and said, hey, who wants to be the next Fed chief? And those two guys held up their hand because they're just auditioning. They're auditioning for the next spot out there. Oh, we'll cut rates for you. Pick us. So, yeah, a lot of fun stuff going on out there on the Fed front. We talked a lot about it with our good buddy Dan the Man Gramza on the Futures Rundown yesterday. Check it out if you missed it, listeners, going on pretty much right after the Fed announcement yesterday. Out to the land of Uncle Mike. Uncle Mike, you missed a good one yesterday. Let us just say we got on the boat with the 10-year note on the Futures Rundown yesterday, and a good time was had by all. Were your ears burning yesterday, sir?
Oh, that sounds like a lot of excitement, especially with the potential new Fed chair and the new rates that might be coming in the near future with a new Fed chair.
Nothing's more exciting than talking about 1/2 of 1/32 of a tick, sir. That's exciting.
I mean, I can't handle this much more, Mark. I gotta go. I mean, this is just too much for me.
I mean, the ticks out there, you can spend a whole day. Just, you want to confuse a kid who's just learning about fractions, introduce him to the Treasury complex over there at CME. 1/4 of 1/32. But I digress. Have at it, sir.
Well, I remember studying for that for my Series 3, almost 20 years ago now. And I grew up in the stock world after decimalization, so I never did any trades for the 16ths and the 8ths or anything like that in the stock world. It was all decimals. And so just seeing how the 10-year note, I'm like, well, this probably won't last long. Well, 20 years later, we're still fractionalized in it. But nonetheless, it was not easy to do, even as a grown man by any means. But with that being said, I'd like to say we're at all-time highs today, but we technically did hit new all-time highs earlier today, but we're back below what the all-time high was going into today. So I can't say my exciting announcement today, but perhaps next week, maybe. We'll see.
You can say never before was it a better time to sell than earlier today. And there you go. It doesn't have the same ring to it, but you get a little bit of the fun out of it.
Yeah, I'm just not feeling it. I like the idea and appreciate the thought, but
I'm just trying to give you some more fun, sir.
I have to be pure for our listeners. The listeners come first, so I have to be pure for them. So anyway, so in terms of some things with which I'm looking at, Microsoft and Meta, those are the two big stories right now, or the two big movers. Just the fact that we had such a ginormous move and such a behemoth of a stock. I think Microsoft's at like the $4 trillion market cap at this stage. And when you're getting earnings announcements just for a little while yesterday to where I believe it was a 10% move in Microsoft, it's difficult for the market not to move a lot when Microsoft's moving a lot, and it's cool. Microsoft's cooling off right now. It's only up 4% on the day at 535. So when you have a behemoth like that, an old behemoth like that has been around for so gosh darn long, it's difficult for the market not to go higher. And then, of course, we have our good friend Meta. That is up over 10% on the day. Knocking at the door of 800. So it was at 784. I'm showing as a high. It's at 776 right now. And the bottom line is when you have stocks that are that big, moving that much, the market's going to go up very likely when things are happening like that. So that's the big story as of now, and we still have a lot more earnings coming up this week. I think Apple's announcing mid-market. I think they're announcing like in 10 minutes or so, from what I understand.
No, you missed them. They came out already, sir. You missed them. They screwed the pooch.
Oh, I did. I missed them. I thought they were coming out in like 5 minutes or so, aren't they?
No, they already did it. They just wanted to make it a little bit harder for you this time.
Oh, got it. So we have that, and I'm excited because of the fact that at least for a few days, markets are going to be moved by earnings and not politics. But I digress, because with the tariff talk, that might change, and we might have movements from politics and earnings all at once. Nonetheless, it will be exciting. That's the good news amongst the bad news, that politics is affecting markets more than I feel it should be. That's what I'm seeing right now, Mark.
Unfortunately, that's the world we're all living. Everybody wants to be Fed chief next. Me, put my hand up out there. But let's see what's going on out there in the options market. I agree with you, Uncle Mike. It is nice when we can kind of just put some of that aside and focus on some just wild earnings numbers out there. You know, did they beat it or not? That's kind of what you want to know. And then did they hit their straddle or not? These are kind of the things that you could focus on, much more micro. They're very concrete, which is kind of nice. And let's go out there to VIX land first. Is VIX lighting it up on a day when the market's kind of up and then it's vacillating, then it's up some more? Yeah, the answer is yes. It's looking pretty good today. Closing in on 500,000 contracts, 481,000 contracts. It seems like a lot of that is due to one sizable spread. Looks like the October 60 110 vertical. It's going up 100,000 times today. Looks like about 40 cents on the 60s and 14 cents on the 110s out there. So pretty much 26 cents for that vertical. Would you be a buyer, listeners? Looks like definitely opening on the 110s. Probably opening on the 60s. I can't imagine why you would roll from the 60s to the 110s now, but we've seen weirder things out there. So I'm going to assume it probably is opening on both legs. There's no other ratio that I could see against it. No other puts or any sort of lower strike call they're selling on a ratio. It seems like that is it. So that's a wild one. And again, that's kind of accounting for a good chunk of the paper out there in VIX, which again, otherwise, you know, VIX would be kind of anemic out there today. 281 on the tape. That would be nothing to write home about at all. So that's kind of the product VIX is. It could be sleepy and then one big trade comes in and changes the game. The rest of it kind of light. The number 3 is a distant number 3, only 20,000 of the set 15 puts. So outside of that size upside vertical, not a heck of a lot going on up there in VIX land. That might be a fun little, just absolutely ridiculous VIX flash poll. Do you want to buy this? Do you want to buy this piece of nonsense? Yes or no? I love when we put a gun to your head and make you decide on those, listeners. It's always fun. Is SPY having a banger day? You know, a little bit. It's not quite whipsawy because it wasn't really red, but up and then up less and then up again out there in SPY land, putting up about 5 million contracts on the tape. So that is certainly respectable. The ADV is 7.6 million, so definitely seems like it's on pace to hit that. The S, 2.5 million, so also looking pretty hot out there in the S. So the index is liking themselves a little bit of a banger day. Go figure. The Mag 7 putting up some numbers. The big indexes are going to follow suit. The ADV in the S, 3.6 million contracts. Small caps also looking really hot out of the gate. 1.15 million contracts on the tape already in IWM. That is spicy. The ADV is 1.36 million. Seems like probably going to get there today. And, you know, we've been talking about this for a little while on the Hot Options Report. There was a brief period, about a week there, where the small caps fell in line with every other major index, and they were all zero-day calls all the time. But outside of that, it's been a lot of downside lighting it up and going out to August and even beyond in small caps. And that is the case today. The big dog in small caps today, 111,000 of the September 211 puts and about 96,000 of the Aug 211 puts. We might have a bit of a put roll on our hands out there, listeners. But either way, more downside leading the dance out there in small caps out there today, and has been for some time. Moving on out to the Qs. Now, maybe if there's one index that you'd think would be just absolutely lighting it up today, given what I talked about earlier with the move out there in the NASDAQ, it would be the NASDAQ. And don't get me wrong, it's respectable. It's looking pretty good. Usually we expect around 2.25 million this time of the show. It's at about 2.6 million. So it's more than that. That's certainly respectable. It's just not, you know, blowing the door. It's not already at the ADV right now or anything like that. The ADV is 3.6 million. Only a million more contracts to go. Seems like it probably can get there before the end of the session. All right, out to single names we go. Is it a banger name out there in single names? You know, earnings season is always fun because if you're tired of the same old NVIDIAs and Teslas and all that fun, those are fun, don't get me wrong, but it's nice to mix it up a little bit, and earnings season does give you that. Like number 10, cost you about 350,000 contracts to break into the top 10 today, so that is above our threshold of respectability, which is 250,000. So 350 is getting pretty hot, getting pretty spicy out there, which is good. It's not 450, but it's good. It's beyond respectable. And that gets us to Applied Digital. Again, you know it's earnings season when Applied Digital is popping into our top 10 today. They did have their earnings. Analysts remain bullish. They soar after earnings up $3.50, 35%. Trading $13.50. Wow, a good one here for good old Applied Digital. I'm hard-pressed to think of the last time we talked about Applied Digital on the network. It has been a while, but a banger earnings looks like for them. A number 10, 348,000 contracts on the tip. I'm not even going to bother looking up their flow because you know it's just going to be Call is expiring tomorrow, probably. Let's go out to the land of the hood for number 9. Man, a big jump between 10 and 9. Number 9, almost 500,000 contracts already for number 9, 482. So this is a spicy day out there volume-wise. Again, it's earnings season, so even if the macro climate post-Fed is heading into the dog days of summer, maybe a little quiet, we've got earnings to deliver us a little bit of action. Robinhood selling off today, 104, off about a little over $2 or about 2%. They had a consensus earnings beat. Oh, but revenue fell 36%. So there you go. I mean, it's not a huge sell-off out there. It did get down to 101 earlier today before rallying. So I guess that's something if you're a bull. It bounced off the 101 strike, hanging out close to 104 right now. Good for number 9, 482,000 contracts. I mean, some shows recently, listeners, get all the way up to number 5 or 4, and we still haven't hit nearly 500,000 contracts. So it's an impressive day. Number 8, the fruit company, as I told Uncle Mike, they already pre-announced, and it was a dumpster fire. They can't move any iPhones or iPads anymore. The stock at about $18 by my estimates right now. I'm just kidding, of course. I like to play with Uncle Mike. And the date of Apple earnings, if you don't know where that comes from, go back to the primordial ooze days of this show when Uncle Mike was the biggest Apple cheerleader in the room. And we used to tease him endlessly about it. All right, to the land of Apple we go. 209 and a third, up about $0.25. So not doing much right now. Kind of playing the wait and see game heading into their earnings. Not also feeling a lot of the love of the rest of the Mag 7. Usually the rising tide will lift all boats, and they are up today, but not a huge move out there for Apple. Number 8, 483 on the tape. Number 7, good old AMDA. Finally turning down a little bit. AMD and NVIDIA have been on quite the run ever since they got the clearance to unleash their wares in China again. Maybe getting some pushback on that on the security front today. But either way, AMD 178.5, off about $1 today, or about 0.5% after being on just a wild run. Up nearly 10%, about 15 handles just over the past 5 sessions. Over the last month, up 26%, 36 handles. So they've had a bit of a good run out there in AMDA of late. Number 7, 583,000 contracts on the tape for them. Number 6, another frequent offender, it's SoFi, 22.80. That just seems like such a rich stock price for them. They were $5-6 not that long ago. But either way, SoFi, up nearly $1 today, about 4.5%. Good for number 6, 592,000 contracts on the tape. Of course, they had earnings a little while ago. Still kind of dealing with the fallout from that. As we keep on rolling to number 5, the Amazonians. 747 on the tape. They are popping off after the bell today. So 750,000 contracts ready for them. 234.80 up 460 or exactly 2%. So they're already popping. And they haven't even had earnings. They're just riding that Mag 7 wave. And of course, number 4, you know I had to get there somewhere. It's Microsoft. Number 4, 895,000 contracts. Up $22 or 4.3%. Trading right around 535 right now. Man, they are making up for lost time. It doesn't seem like it was that long ago we were joking about Microsoft having just a completely lost decade. If you put money in Microsoft, you literally got nothing for a decade in terms of appreciation out there. So they are making up for lost time, up about 4.25% today for number 4, Microsoft. What could eclipse the big dog Microsoft today? Well, it's another M tech name. It's Meta. Man, these prices just seem wild. 776.66. I think we were joking about the 7 halves yesterday on the hot options report. Yeah, there were 7 halves, and that was the hot option yesterday in Meta, expiring on Friday. And we said that's a pretty aggressive trade. The stock closing right around a little shy of $700, $695, somewhere in that range. And lo and behold, before the show was even done, the move in the after hours had already blown through the 7 half strike. So it was wild. And they weren't just giving them away. I think they were paying somewhere around $5 for those bad boys. So they were significantly rolling those bones, and they're doing all right now. Those are looking pretty good. Stock 776. So yeah, looking pretty good out there right now. For number 3, Meta, nearly 1 million contracts on the tape, 983. But you know what? Both of those still can't hang with the top 2. And if you add Microsoft and Meta together today, they still can't eclipse the big dog today. So that shows you who still rules the roost. But number 2, it's Tesla, 311, off about $8 or 2.5%. So a day that ends in Y, moves up and moves down. Who knows what's driving it out there today? Either way, number 2, 1.2 million contracts. More sellers than buyers, it seems like, out there today for Tesla. And then the big dog out there, yeah, NVIDIA, add up Microsoft, add up Meta, and you still don't get Tesla. Hey, throw in Tesla and Meta, or your choice, Microsoft, add them both together. They still don't add up to NVIDIA today. And it isn't even that hot of a day for NVIDIA. Only 2.36 million contracts on the tape. They finally are kind of, looks like, stalling out a little bit here after, again, being on that crazy run they were on, just like AMD, after they somehow magically greased the wheels at the White House to sell into China. I wonder how that happened. Let's just say they seem open to persuasion over there these days. NVIDIA number one, 2.36 million contracts on the tape today for NVIDIA. But let's go out to the earnings season. That's what everybody's paying attention to right now. And you're lucky because we like you. We have a wealth, an embarrassment of riches on the data front for you folks to sink your teeth into. It was a hot week out there. SoFi on Tuesday, PayPal, Boeing, Starbucks, Visa, EA, and good old Mara. Our buddy Mr. Bill came on the Crypto Rundown on Monday, and he was champing at the bit to sell some premium in Mara. He and I may have talked ourselves into a few trades out there. I'll get to what I did on oddities later this week if you're hanging out on the Pro. Wednesday, of course, Meta and Microsoft and Hood and good old Ford. The dumpster fire that is Ford. They sold off well below the 11 handle last I saw. Now they're rallying back up to it. Doesn't seem like they were looking pretty good. Earnings has passed expectations. Revenues rise. Tariff hit, as you might expect, was looming on them. $800 million tariff hit. I see one here saying 800 million tariff hit. The other one says $2 billion tariff hit. So I'm not sure which to believe, but either way, they are taking a hit on tariffs. Nonetheless, they're managing to climb back over $11. Seems like the 11 halves I sold probably safe out there in good old Ford, aka the dumpster fire. Never met a call out there I didn't like to sell. Today, of course, Apple, Amazon, Coinbase, Roku, Roblox, and MasterCard tomorrow, Exxon and Chevron. And we got some hot ones. I won't even really quickly, I'll do Meta. They were pricing in 6%. They delivered 12%. Spoiler alert, they outperformed. Microsoft, weirdly enough, they were pricing in a fair amount of juice. They're pricing in 3.8%. They had moved, as of the time of this report, 4.5%. Obviously, in the after hours, the move got much wilder. They got up to 561 in the after hours. So, again, that's the challenge. Trading options during earnings season, you sometimes miss the apex of the move if you're long premium. I know that's frustrating to a lot of you, hence the call, usually around earnings season, to get some after hours options trading. Spoiler alert, that's the time of year you're probably least likely to get anything. Look at the new NASDAQ proposal for 0DTE. They specifically carve out earnings season. So earnings is when stuff gets wild. So you're probably not getting that anytime soon. But I digress. Let's go out to, they had Qualcomm. They were yesterday as well. They were after the bell. They were pricing in about 6%. They delivered about 6%. So no big shocks there. Oh man, so many popping off. Ford was pricing in 5.6%. I thought it looked kind of rich, the premium. I thought it seemed like a bit of a screaming sale, and it seems like it was. They've net moved a little bit shy of 2% right now in Ford. At the end of the day, if you can sell juice in Ford, you're usually better off doing it. Let's see. Let's go out to Robinhood. They were pricing in, 9.5%. When we ran this report this morning, they had moved less than 0.5%. So they were a smoking premium sale. Looks like they still have moved about almost 3%. But either way, wow, looking pretty good out there on the premium harvesting front. Let's go look ahead a little bit. I was teasing the fruit company is, of course, after the bell today, lest Uncle Mike, I could stop him from fiendishly looking for his Apple quotes right now as we speak and derailing the rest of the show. Apple, when we ran this report, hanging out right around 209. They were pricing in $8.34. In the past, they had moved $6.31, so fully $2.03 extra juice out there in Apple land. Is that merited, or is that a little bit juicy? Maybe too juicy for you. Maybe you want to sell it? You want to buy it? I'm curious. Hit us up. Let us know. The Amazonians, 230 is where they were trading. They were pricing in $12.71. In the past, they've moved $14.19. So they've already moved a bit today. You want to be a buyer or a seller at that price? Let's go out to Coinbase. They've been rock and rolling a lot of late. This is interesting. They trading 377.5. They were pricing in about $25. In the past, they've moved about exactly $25. So They're looking for a little bit of past his prologue out there in Coinbase land. Out to the monster. They are today after the bell. What a wild day out there after the bell today, listeners. Going to be a fun time on the Hot Options Report. Stay tuned later today. The monster after the bell, $3.95 even is where they were trading. They were pricing, get this, $23. Actually, they had moved in the past, $23. And right now they are pricing in shy of $14.86. My goodness, over $8 discount to what they've moved before. Maybe that's a screaming sale out there in the monster. Maybe you need to scoop some premium out. I'll have to go look and see. Out to the Riot. I haven't talked about Riot in a while. They're after the bell today as well. My goodness. You can't find something to trade today. You're not looking. $13.50 is where the stock was trading. They were pricing in $1.01. In the past, they've moved $1.01. So exactly in line. That's kind of freaky. And then out to Roku. I haven't talked about them in forever. $92 exactly. They were pricing in about $10.50. In the past, they've moved nearly 14. $13.78, so a bit of a vol haircut out there in good old Roku. Let's do a couple more. Let's go out to the drug side. Let's go to Moderna. $32.15 is where they were trading when we ran this. They're pricing in $2.50. In the past, they're pricing in $2.81. In the past, they've moved $2.50. Some weird name called Cboe. I'm not familiar with them. They're on the first before the bell on Friday. They were trading $241.70 when we ran this report. They're pricing in $6.11. In the past, they moved $6.13. So pretty much an exact bullseye is what they're pricing in out there in Cboe land. No more, no less. And in terms of the season, how's it shaping up right now? Well, a little bit of recency bias, obviously, but this last session or two, they've been bangers, and that is being reflected in our season report right now. 145% listeners. That is hot. That is spicy. That is potentially the spiciest I've ever seen it since we've been crunching these numbers. So obviously that won't last, but that is still pretty wild. Our long-term average is already ridiculous at 119%, and we are blowing that away right now. Just give you some perspective. This week and last week, hanging out north of 150% each. So again, 100% means every name is delivering exactly what their straddle priced in. We're 50% beyond that right now. So wild times out there on the earnings vol front. But it's always wild when we unleash the Flowmaster. So let's do that right now. Time for the Odd Block.
It's time to break down the most interesting, unusual, and downright questionable options activity that's been identified by theoptionsinsider.com. It's time for the Odd Block.
All right, everybody, time to get weird, time to get wild, time to unleash the Flowmaster. And is the Flowmaster getting memey today? I guess we'll find out. What has he fixed his steely gaze upon first? Going out to Coursera, ticker symbol COUR. I do believe this is a newcomer. I don't think we've discussed this one really on the network before. Online coursework certification provider out there. Trading today, $12.78. Having a good day, popping about 80 cents. Or nearly 7% today, so it seems like perhaps the meme crowd has discovered this one. They're up from early July at $8. So over the past month, they're up nearly 50%, 45% to $4. So a good little run for Coursera. Over the past year, though, they were $9.30 a year ago, so they're still up. They're up 37%, about $3.50 from the past year, but they did get lower. Obviously, on April 8th, they hit 5 3/4. So quite the run out there. They had good revenue 3 days ago. Impressive earnings, enough to merit this. I don't know. Let's see what the Flowmaster spotted out there. Mr. Flowmaster, sir, what is catching your eye in the hallowed halls of Coursera, sir?
Yeah, this is one I've never traded this name, but it did show up on one of my scanners, just basically looking for directional, unusually large upside buying. And so what the trade that we saw was right after 10:32 in the morning, New York time. Stock was at 1265, and a buyer swept almost 3,000 of the step 14 calls, and they did it in the form of this, of a high speed routed sweep. It actually lifted offers on 18 exchanges. That's all the exchanges there currently are. Took less than 13 milliseconds to do. and it is opening. Stock's a little bit higher now. Stock's trading kind of 12.79. So they seem to be up a little bit. I'm not sure if there's catalyst or something else, but this is a little name. I mean, it is. I think there's kind of some familiar brand recognition. And as I mentioned earlier, the meme stock, certainly are kind of dominating the attention of at least a segment of the investors. And this really could be one of those. I'll be kind of keeping an eye on the, it doesn't look hard to borrow, but it's about 2% is the borrow cost. So it's a little bit hard to borrow. Potential there for some sort of a squeeze. And, as you mentioned, stock's done okay. Stock's kind of near at least a 1-year high. I wanted to actually comment on that. You're talking about earnings, and we're right in the thick of it. It is pretty interesting that I put out a note, and it's posted at Cboe, on how the Mag 7 earnings were actually implying, a relatively boring season. Like most things were kind of pricing in a little bit below the moving average of earnings gaps. And, after we've seen, certainly what Microsoft and Meta have done. I mean, Microsoft has kind of come back into the zone, but last night it was up huge. The Apple straddle for tonight actually is trading higher than it was yesterday. So this is what we see, right? When you start to see a lot of blowouts, everybody reprices and says, well, hang on, things are moving. And so, one way that people kind of play this, holding a straddle into earnings is very dicey, but trying to kind of surf the pre-earnings period, maybe pick up some free convexity, because basically you don't really have the same kind of time decay, because nobody really wants to jump in and start selling premium in front of earnings. That would have worked out pretty well, certainly for Apple this time around.
Yeah, interesting stuff. Might be a fun little flash poll to put out to our audience here of which straddle are they liking better heading into earnings, the Apples or the Amazons of the world? I'm curious. Hit us up. But you know what? We're not done breaking down weird and wild paper. Let's keep rolling. The Flowmaster bringing the heat today with some newcomers. We go from Coursera to Freshworks. You hear a name like Freshworks, you might think, okay, maybe they deliver produce and other fresh food to your house. Of course not. It's an Indian software as a service company. Why wouldn't it be an Indian software as a service company with a name like Freshworks, listeners? Ticker symbol FRESH, FRSH, trading $13.20, off about a third of a buck, or a little over 2% today. On the year, let's see, they were 12.5 bucks a year ago, so they're up net 70 cents on the year. They did get higher. They got up to about almost 20 bucks, 19 3/4. Right at the end of January there. So since then, they've kind of had a bit of a rough go. They did sell off to about, looks like 12 bucks in the big sell-off in April. So they have rallied since then. They got up to 16 bucks almost a few times in May and in June, but they couldn't sustain all of that and came right back down to 13 bucks again right now for everyone's favorite Freshworks. Mr. Flowmaster, sir, what did you find in this very popular produce company, sir?
It's another name that I've never traded. I have heard of I think they have an accounting package, right? It's another one of these kind of thinly traded names with what looks like an interesting upside call buyer. This time, around 11:22 New York time, a buyer paid from 25 to 26 cents for just about 2,000 of the step 15 calls to open. And that's when the stock was at 13.12. Stock's up at 13.22 right now. So so far they're doing okay. I mean, it's a September trade, so they have 50 days until these expire. It's a quiet name. It only averages 1,900 calls a day. So for one trader to sweep up basically 2,000, that's significant to me. Again, I guess I would kind of just keep an eye on it as a potential squeeze name, a potential meme name. I don't know, earnings, when were earnings? They're estimated for November. So we've been through the earnings cycle. Just another one to keep an eye on. As I said, it's, we're at all-time highs or near. Market's actually kind of pulled back a little bit from this morning's jump, but there's a lot of spec out there, and this looks like another little pocket of it.
Speaking of spec, let's dial the Wayback Machine all the way back to yesterday, listeners, to a hot name we haven't talked about in quite some time. This is Bristol Myers Squibb, ticker symbol BMY. Good old Beamy. Trading 43.64 today, off about 2 1/3 or about 5% today. So not a banger day for them. They did have earnings and they beat estimates, but apparently not great for them. They cut their earnings outlook as they're facing inroads from generic competitors, it looks like here. So net beat estimates, doesn't sound like the guidance was great. On the year, let's see, a year ago, they were $47.50, so they're still down about $4, close to it on the year, about 8%. They did have a nice run all the way up to 63 1/3 back in right around middle of March. So they took a nice drubbing since March. They've sold off pretty much $20 on this stock. So that's a bit of an ouchie. They did bounce off this level pretty much once before. May 14th, they got to about $44. Then they rallied it. June 12th, got up to about 51 again. And then since then, they've been kind of languishing and trending lower. And of course, trending even lower after the most recent announcement. That said, Mr. Flowmaster, sir, what did you spot yesterday heading into the earnings in good old Beamy?
Yeah, so this one actually, I've spotted it this morning because it did top our trade of the day list as the most profitable opening sweep from yesterday. That was a buyer of August 1st. So they
the infamous
today.
Trade of the day newsletter that no one will ever see.
Which someday will be available to the public. But for right now, it's just you and me and a couple of close friends, purely because of laziness. But the biggest trade, most profitable trade in that yesterday was a 5,000 lot of the 46 puts that expired today that were bought for 71 cents in a 42-leg sweep around noon, just about a few minutes before noon. They paid 69 to 71 cents. The average price was about 71. It opened, stock was 46.60. These things closed at $1.12, so they made $200,000, about 57% on that single trade, and that wasn't even that wasn't earnings. So then, right in front of it, and then post earnings, we see the stock down 5%. As you mentioned, very heavy volume. That's about what was priced in. So in this case, it looks like the buyer guessed the direction right. They're up like another 70 or 80 cents. So it's going to be another $300,000 or so in this trade. It's pretty impressive to me. It takes, this was almost basically they were either going to make a bunch of money or it was going to go to zero very quickly. And they got the direction right, and the magnitude basically was kind of accurately priced. Drugs are kind of a different story in the whole tariff and trade wars kind of saga. There's a lot of, the story on drugs is a little bit different, right? There's a lot of government chatter about holding prices down, and that's not great for drug companies. So it's an interesting one. It's a bearish one. I haven't seen them exit. Basically, these contracts aren't really trading much, so they're probably they may be kind of buying the stock so that when they assign these at the end of the day tomorrow, they'll get out that way. But that's a healthy one, basically to make about 300% on some $350,000 of premium or so is not bad.
You don't see a lot of size put fading right before earnings. It's always so optimistic these days, so kind of stands out by default. Someone going to the dark side and working out pretty good out here, listeners, out here in good old BMY. Speaking of things working out, let's pay off. We got so many Flowmaster trades that we've been tracking forever. Let's see if we can squeeze one in to pay off here. Go out to the May 8th show. So going back a few months here to everyone's favorite name, Venture Global, ticker symbol VG, trading $15.50 today. But we're not talking about today, are we? A year ago, this name was $24, so they've come under some heat. When we talked about it back on the May 8th show, and it was the Flowmaster who spotted this one, the stock was a little bit below $9, $8.90, and somebody was coming in to scoop some upside. They said, hey, May 10s, how are they? They got 20 cents at 40. They said, I will pay 40 cents, good sir. 4,900 times. They also bought some earlier that morning, looks like for about 25 cents. So they had been about 3,000 times, and then 2,000 for about 35 cents. So they kept buying them pretty much all the way up, listeners. Spoiler alert, they liked the 10 strike in this name. It wasn't going out that far. This was May, and we were already about a week into May. So they weren't going out that far. They were rolling the bones on a pretty decent move coming up in the near future out there in Venture Global. And it looks like it pretty much worked out. Now, if you just look at the expiration print, they didn't, because the stock went out $9.79, which, of course, below that all-important 10 strike. So that's not good. But on the flip side, looks like somebody took some off just a few sessions later, less than a week later on May 12th, for about 75 cents. That's when the stock had a big run. It ran all the way up pretty much to their strike, $10. And somebody decided, hey, I'm going to bail on a bunch of these for 75 cents. So if that was these initial people, then they pretty much doubled their money, if not more, depending on which price. If you average it in, it's at least doubling their money. That said, there were still 11,000 open on this strike. So somebody rode 11,000 of these to oblivion. But someone else had the good fortune to at least take some of them off for a two-banger a few days later. Mr. Flowmaster, do you recall this trade that you profiled in Venture Global? And what do you think about how it turned out?
Yeah, this was kind of an interesting one. And, it's I don't know. I've said it many times. We do pay attention to order flow and positioning. And, my strong belief is that option traders tend to be pretty savvy. That doesn't mean they're all going to work, but option traders that don't know what they're doing don't last very long. So that's a solid hit.
And let's see if you folks have any solid hits in store for us as we head on into the mail block.
It's time to take your seat on the all-star panel as we read your emails, tweets, Facebook messages, website comments, and much more. It's time for the mail block.
All right, everybody. Welcome to the mail block, the portion of the show where you folks take the reins, your questions, your comments. Also, we turn the spotlight back on you with our questions of the week. Let's pay off the ones we asked you last week really quickly. We asked you, first off, we asked very simply last week, are you trading options on Open? Open was dominating the charts this time a week ago. 51.4% of you said, heck no, want nothing to do with that nonsense. And then a tie for number two, about 24% each for heck yes, and I'm just watching the madness. Obviously, you add together heck no and just watching. You've got about 3/4 of the audience not touching Open. So I get it. Not for the faint of a heart out there. Let's go out to, we also asked you last week, what is the biggest challenge facing your options trading right now? So heading into the dog days of summer, what is confounding your options trading? Is it just that there are too many things to trade? Is it that the spreads are too wide? Is it bad execution and bad fills? Or are you having a hard time finding some juice to sell? And that ended up taking it. 40.5% of you having a hard time finding some tasty juice in these markets. 37.8% of you having a hard time because there's just too many things to trade. Look at what we just profiled. Look at what's just popping off after the bell just today. There is an embarrassment of riches of things to trade out there right now. Spreads are too wide and bad execution, bad fills, both tying for 3, right around 11% each for you. So a lot of you having a hard time finding juice, and also a lot of you just overwhelmed with choice, overwhelmed with options out there now, pun intended. We asked you earlier this week, I think it was on the Monday show, we saw a big block of the VIX AUG 18 puts going up 20,000 times for $1.69. We said, that's obviously kind of rich, but obviously VIX is getting lower. We said, at that price, are you a buyer or a seller? And over 2/3 of you, 76.5%, wanted to sell those bad boys. Only 23.5% wanted to buy them. I get it. I know our audience, you tend to like to nibble on the VIX downside. Usually a little bit cheaper outlays than that. $1.70, you might want to sell that and look to get something else against it. All right, rolling out to this week. I said we're heading into the dog days of summer. It's not usually a banger time to buy some straddles, but you know what? We're going to do it anyway because we're crazy people. We said, gun to your head, which of these straddles would you rather buy right now? Gave you 4 choices. The Q, so the NASDAQ straddle, which when we posted this on Monday was trading about $15. These are all front month, all August. The VIX AUG straddle, about $3. IBIT, so going out to crypto, $4.50. And good old beloved GLD, Uncle Mike's Precious Metals out there, $8.50 for the gold straddle. Uncle Mike, we'll start with you, sir. Again, not usually a time where people are falling over themselves to buy some straddles, which is what makes it fun. Well, first off, if you have any thoughts on the results of our poll from last week that our audience, I think that's what you chose, having a hard time finding juice to sell. So are you surprised that the audience agreed with you or not? And B, what do you think was your choice of these straddles? And what do you think our audience is lining up? Which straddle are they buying? Qs, VIX, IBIT, or GLD?
I'm thinking that the audience is going IBIT, and I'm going with them, just as we talked about on Monday. I'm not typically a Bitcoin person, and by not typically meaning pretty much never. But the opportunity to get some negative deltas on Bitcoin, especially since it's for an audience poll to where I don't have to put my money where my mouth is, I'm going short Bitcoin, by gosh.
I think you said on Monday you wanted to buy that IBIT straddle, and our chat was stunned. They were dumbfounded. They said, "What have you done with Uncle Mike? Release him from captivity, you monster." But going with it today, doubling down on IBIT. Mr. Flowmaster, are you surprised that our audience is having a hard time finding juice to sell right now, or not so much? And then B, which of these four straddles, if any of them, is resonating with you, sir, and which one's resonating with our audience?
Well, it doesn't surprise me. People that are selling premium are a little bit taken aback by levels. However, my colleague Mandy Zhu, her latest note talked about even with VIX at 14.5, 15. Actually, we're back at 16 today. We're still realizing about 7 or 8 points below that. So even at these low levels, I know Mark Sebastian has a saying, basically, you sell VIX when it's low and you buy VIX when it's high. So, premium selling still has kind of worked. However, we have seen some big moves. So you really have to be pretty careful. In terms of the straddle, I think they might be going for the Qs, because as much as kind of there was briefly a story about how maybe the Mag 7s were going to start to fade, and, NVIDIA kind of had stopped going up briefly there for a while, it sure has kind of come right back into the front of the view. So I'd go with that Q straddle.
Our audience is value shopping, looks like today. 43.2% going for the VIX straddle, around $3. They want to take a cheap swing for the fences. I get it. I mean, VIX, if any one of these can be poised to outperform, VIX can certainly be one. Not usually the seasonal time you want to buy VIX, but we get one crazy tweet and that $3 is looking cheap. Of course, the Qs are also, they can easily outperform there as well. Look at the earnings we're seeing. 21.6% want to go for that. It's actually number 3, because number 2 is IBIT, Uncle Mike's beloved IBIT. 27% want to buy that IBIT straddle for $4.50. 8.1% are going for GLD. Got a bunch of people chiming in with different stuff. Our good buddy, one of our pro members, Age Delaquarius, saying, definitely VIX. I've got a bad feeling Vol could pop at any time. Yeah, you're not alone, judging by these numbers here, Age. And then Vernon Griffin, our resident humorist, posted an inappropriate gift, sir. You should be embarrassed, ashamed of yourself, which he promptly replied and apologized for, because he knew. You know what you did, Vernon. You should be ashamed. But it was, I have to admit, I did laugh. So a lot of fun stuff out there. That's going until after Vol Views tomorrow. Get your votes in as we keep going around the block.
It's time to tell you what we'll be watching on our trading screens until the next episode. It's time for Around the Block.
All right, everybody, welcome to Around the Block, the portion of the show where we tell you what we're keeping an eye on until our next episode through the weekend. Let's start with the Uncle of Mike's. Mr. Uncle Mike, sir, what are you keeping an eye on heading into ye old weekend?
Markets at these levels, we're actually negative on the day right now. CN of 6,400 is acting as a point of resistance. Watching that as well as the rest of the earnings, and there might be some tariff stuff going on. So I'm watching a lot of stuff. I really can't sleep much now. I'm missing out.
This is why you pay Uncle Mike. He stays up at night drinking heavily and popping Tums, so you don't have to. So that's what Uncle Mike, that's what he gets the big bucks for. By the way, you're right. I neglected to mention coming into the end of the show, we have swung to the dark side now, listeners. S&P off over 0.1%, almost 0.15%. The Dow off almost 0.5%, about 0.4%, I should say. And then NASDAQ up about 0.1%. But looks like that's getting sucked to the red as well. VIX cash back north of the 16 handle. So does seem like the worm is turning. Uncle Mike needs to get off the show and get in touch with his cabal boys. They got to start buying again. I guess he's been busy on the show. Mr. Flowmaster, same question for you, sir. What are you keeping an eye on into the weekend?
Well, the earnings that we do have, today, Apple, Amazon, strategy. Next week, a few more. It does start to peter out in the beginning of August. And then I think we will see kind of some quiet times, just because August, I still believe August gets quiet, although every once in a while we get a surprise. So, on the macro picture, it really just kind of seems like, everybody kind of knows how this is going. It doesn't mean that we couldn't get a surprise. When I was in Chicago last week, we had a meeting with a Bloomberg economist, and he had some pretty good stats. One of them was that Trump, either directly or indirectly, shows up this year in 30% of the headlines on the Bloomberg terminal, which compares to about 10% for Biden and less than 5% for Obama. So, just based on the fact that, we know how he does things, we're likely to see some surprises, but really at kind of the higher level, everybody seems to be pretty comfortable with how things are progressing. We've kind of swung to negative today, but still, July is going to go down as one of the stronger months. So, that's what I'll be watching.
All right, a lot of good stuff to watch here, listeners. Unfortunately, that music means we've come to the end of the show for today. But you know what? We're not done on the network, not by a long shot. No, we're giving you triple headers pretty much every day now. Coming back in a little bit with our good buddy, Mr. Rich Excel from the Hogwarts for derivatives traders to talk all things futures options on TWIFO. Coming up in a little bit, so stay tuned for that. And then after that, we'll be back to wind down the day with the hot options reports. These names we're talking about here, can they manage to break into the top 10 at the end of the day? I guess we'll find out. Spoiler alert, Microsoft and Meta, Tesla and NVIDIA probably going to be there. The rest, can they make it? I guess we'll find out. Stay tuned for that a little bit later today. And all folks are staying tuned for stuff, Uncle Mike, if they want to check in with you and see how you're doing, give you a little wellness check as you're having a hard time sleeping these days. Where should they go? What should they do?
I never sleep. Money never sleeps, like the Wall Street movie says, right? Go to stcharleswealth.com if you'd like to have a conversation with me regarding anything financial and or derivatives and or both. I would love to have a conversation with any of our listeners if you're looking for a financial advisor who is not afraid of the option product, stcharleswealth.com.
All right, Mr. Flowmaster, same question for you. Where should they go if they want to check out all these goodies? And give us someday down the road, will we ever see, sir, the hot trade, what do you call it? The trade of the day newsletter.
The trade of the day, yes, I will get it to be a command, which then at least users could set up to get automatically, and you could even limit the scope. It'd be good. So, yes, someday. And if you want to check out all the data and platforms we have at Cboe, just go to cboe.com/RMA. Take a look around, request a trial. We're always happy to help people out.
Cboe.com/RMA. Hit him up. Maybe hit him up on, the Twitters as well. And you too can pressure him into getting the trade of the day in your hot little hands. It's cool stuff, as you can clearly see here on the show. In the meantime, of course, head on over to Cboe.com/RMA to begin your journey to the dark side. Like I said, our journey continues in a little bit on TWIFO. Then after that, one final time for today for the hot options report, a.k.a. Thor. Tomorrow, we got vol views, and then, of course, Options Oddities 200. Going to have a special guest joining me. Who will it be? I just say they bring the heat whenever they're on the show. Let me put it that way. So it should be a fun time on Options Oddities tomorrow. Remember, if you want to get that, theoptionsinsider.com/pro. Tomorrow will be too late to get the July Pro Trading Crate, so get in there today. Theoptionsinsider.com/pro. Get while the getting is good. We will find out who the winner is potentially tomorrow. So it should be a good time. And then after that, of course, one final time for the week for the hot options reports, and then more good stuff on the horizon until we're back again, another episode of the Option Block. Stay safe out there, everybody.
The Option Block is brought to you by Cboe. Cboe's suite of S&P 500 index options, SPX and mini S&P 500 XSP options, allows traders to speculate on the direction of the market, generate income, and hedge for downside protection of their portfolio of stocks. No matter what kind of trader you are, there's plenty of useful information to take the guesswork out of creating your portfolio strategy and to help you make more educated moves in the market. Visit www.cboe.com/SPX today to learn more. The views expressed herein are those of the speakers and do not necessarily reflect the views of Cboe Global Markets Incorporated or any of its subsidiaries, collectively Cboe. The information provided is for general education and information purposes only. There are important risks associated with transacting in any of the Cboe products or any of the digital assets discussed here. Before engaging in any transactions in those products or digital assets, it is important for market participants to carefully review the disclosures and disclaimers contained at www.cboe.com/US_disclaimers. These products and digital assets are complex and are suitable only for sophisticated market participants. These products involve the risk of loss, which can be substantial and, depending on the type of product, can exceed the amount of money deposited in establishing the position. Market participants should put at risk only funds they can afford to lose without affecting their lifestyle. You're listening to the Options Insider Radio Network, the home of the Options Podcast. For more quality options programs, visit theoptionsinsider.com or search for Options Insider Radio Network in your podcast provider of choice. Listeners can also access all of our programming through our mobile app available in the iTunes and Google Play stores. Select programs are also available via live stream at mixlr.com/options-insider. That's mixlr.com/options-insider. Don't forget to follow along with your favorite programs and submit your own questions for the hosts at twitter.com/options, stocktwits.com/options, facebook.com/theoptionsinsider, or via questions at theoptionsinsider.com.